So this is a belated video from Thursday. So we're going to talk about King David. Why Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson shares a certain midrashim, which means like speaking about it. Like, so in other words, different ways to look at it, different ways to think of it. And he says Lot, who's in this parsha. We had the parsha means portion of the Torah from this week's parsha. Literally, I just read the portion of it from yesterday. It's divided into 7 days. So he had incest when he was drunk with his daughters, and came out of that was Moab. The daughter named her son Moab, which means from father. Eventually that was the grandfather, the great, the ancestor of Ruth. Ruth was the grandmother of David on his father's side. So the side of the mother from Yehuda and Tamar. So Yehuda is the son, is Judah. Judah thought she was a prostitute after he withheld the third son from her, because the first two died after spilling seed. And the first didn't want to make her lose a pre-pregnancy beauty and her youthful sexiness. The second didn't want to give a child to his dead brother through his widow, which is called Yibum. And when he saw she was pregnant, Judah, which was one of the 12 tribes, the son of Leah from Jacob, who was named Yisrael. So this is the start of the Jewish nation. He said, when he saw she was pregnant, he wanted to kill her till she gave some items she got at the time at their intimacy, and he realized it was his babies, and they were twins. And then David's father, Yishai, became more self-conscious about being a Moabite, and he felt he couldn't be with his Jewish woman wife. He said this wife from the mother's side is from Judah. The father is from Ruth, which is from Moab. And he said, I can't be with her. It says in the Torah you can't be with someone who's a Moabite. But technically it's saying that it's a man can't be with a Moabite woman, because then the kids will be from Moab and won't be Jewish. But it says, some people say, well, no, actually the mother could be Jewish and the father could be from Moab. Anyway, it says, so he decided he could be instead with their Canaanite maidservant. If he was Jewish, he'd redeem her, and if not, he could marry her. If he's not Jewish, he could marry her, and if he was Jewish, he would redeem her. So, but this Canaanite maidservant told the wife, and when the man thought Yishai thought he was intimate with the Canaanite woman, maidservant, it was actually, he thought it was the maid, but it was really his wife. So that's why he felt it was a bastard when the wife was pregnant. Same thing that happened with Judah, right? When the woman was pregnant. So he treated David that way, and the brothers did also, thinking of him as the mother's pregnancy from an affair. But rather, she had actually replaced the maid. It was her that was with the husband. And then now, I want to talk about how, where is it? Oops. Okay, hold on. Here it is. Chaim. So Chaim means life. This is from Chabad.org from Mendel Commonson and Zalman Abraham. And Chai means alive, Chai. In the singular, Chaim, life, is plural, lives. And so it teaches us that there's multiple phases and expression of a single never-ending life. In other words, death in Hebrew, histalkut, means elevation from one level to another. When one completes the life mission, elevating to, this is from the Lubavitch Rebbe, elevating to a higher plane, and spiritual life takes a new dimension. So that means that the spirit of the person, the soul of that person, continues on a journey of life, not a life in the body. So conservation of matter, nothing physical can be destroyed, but it just changes form. So we don't think of it as like an afterlife, really. We actually, we could call it that, but we think of it as a continuation, a continued life. A continuation of life even after what we call death. In the Talmud, and the Blavitcher Rebbe also says on death that insofar as the soul is concerned, death is a release from its imprisonment in the body. For so long as the soul is bound up with the body, it suffers from the physical limitations of the body, which necessarily constrain the soul and involve it in physical activities that are essentially alien to its purely spiritual nature. In other words, the departure of the soul from the body is actually a great advantage and ascent for the soul. We call it an ascent. So in the Talmud, it says that righteous individuals are considered alive even in their death, and a wicked individual is considered as dead even in their lifetime. Every meaningful act, every mitzvah, like even mitzvah done for someone who died in merit of them, will help the departed soul's journey and its ascent, traveling through in the worlds beyond in its journey of life after its bodily death. So every meaningful act and mitzvah performed actually creates an energetic imprint, not just when we do it for someone who has passed away, but every person who did it while they were in their physical body. Because in our temporary time in this body, the soul does not, something's hurting me. The soul does not rest at death and continuously rises. Even after death, we call this Aliyas Neshama. The Neshama is still rising. And then I want to share on the website from Asher Crisp, Inter-Inclusion, we learned originally the moon was transparent, like a small self. King David was compared to the moon. So here we talked about life, and it says, Chai Chai V'Kayam, David Melech Israel. So that's the theme of these topics. We're talking about King David, the house of David. So basically David, we talked about his lineage, we talked about life, and now we're talking about how the moon. So, and like good and bad and like the nations. So here we say from Rabbi Asher Crisp on his Inter-Inclusion website, where he usually writes, and sometimes his wife, and once I think there was a guest. So anyway, originally the moon was transparent. So King David's compared to the moon, the Jews are compared to the moon. He ruled over the Yehudim, we call them Jews. Yehudi is Judy, right? Like kind of into English. And so it's like the small self compared to the sun, which is the all self. In Hebrew, we would say the omnipotent, or the all capable, or the able to be all, the kol yichol, or the can be all, the all can. So being able to be anyone or anything, not attached to certain will, to be not attached to a certain will, which is to be thinking, feeling, or appearing one way. The Baal Shem Tov said evil even is a seat for good. So the countries, sorry, not the countries. I said earlier the countries, I meant the counter will. So the counter will brings out the original will. As in the cloudy, which is full of itself, can actually exile the real self from the self. Conceived self, perceived self, imagined self, idealized self, thereby revealing the real self, since there's a clarity of a lack of full transmission. So sometimes it's like, oh, when it's dark, you realize the sun's not shining. So in other words, we have a conceived self, a perceived self, conception, literally, a perception, and then imagined self, and the idealized self. And then I want to talk, the final topic will be, what is it? Actually, I think that's it for today. This video is left over from Wednesday. Oh no, here it is. So when we have awareness and de-escalation of high energy output, so this is kind of the idea of so we just talked about, the body, and the body could be like cloudy sometimes for the light, right? So it's like, where were we? Oh yeah. So the all can. So we say the body is limited, right? It can't do everything. But the counter will, which is like maybe the body has a different will, like I want to do all this stuff, but my body tells me no, I just want to eat or sleep or pray or have relations or pleasure, really, right? So then we talk about high energy output. Let's say there's a lot of energy, and the body, like, we can't contain it. We can't like ground the body. So this is the other side of it, right? So we had, sometimes where it's like even when the Baal Shem Tov said that even evil is a seat for goodwill. It's like you have something to sit on. Instead of sitting on good, you're sitting on evil. So just a chair for you. So anyway, now we have the de-escalation of high energy output. You might say usually it's fire signs that like it's like an oven at 500 degrees. It's going to overcook and ruin the food that's put in, certain foods, right? Some foods will do well at that temperature. Some people say they cook their sourdough bread at 500 degrees. So we have to be able to dial down the heat sometimes, and in order to adapt properly to the needs of the specific situation. Thinking about when there's a fury passion that's untitrated, it could burn people out. Even we could burn others out. And a person who's on the receiving end could actually feel resentful, like they're not really able to be part of the dynamic. They're like being burnt away, like to a crisp. So it could seem like interrupting, over-talking, loudness, shouting, or it could be like someone who's very opinionated, judgmental, aggressive, pushy, domineering, versus a soft-spoken, silent, pauses, lowering the tone, gentle, validating, sensitive, interested. It's really like a kind of closer to empathy or listening and groundedness and not reactivity. It doesn't mean this person doesn't have the ability to go to 500 degrees. So for example, at work or sex or exercise, it could be good to use the high energy output, 500 degrees, the fire. But in conversations with children or with children, or with when you need care, really, it could be too intense. You need to be able to lower it to 400, 300, 200, or 100. So we're going to stop there, and I will record a video shortly for Thursday. Okay, bye.